So a couple of weeks ago, I took some soil samples out of my lawn that is now completely destroyed and out of the native area above it. And the reason I did that was because the soil that I built the lawn area out of came from that back native area section. So I sampled it a couple of different depths, and I wanted to see what the difference was in certain areas and what has changed over the last couple of years. So I got those test results back, and I want to share those with you today because sometimes when you find something really cool and you're excited to share, it's just nice to be able to do it. And right now, I just don't really have anybody to talk to about it or geek out about what's happening. But you know, there is one guy, no, not him, one guy I know who would absolutely love to see this.
What's up, everybody?
Soil Ecology Hotline. This is Mark from Lawn Creeps Limited speaking.
What's up, Creep? It's JP.
John, my God, how the heck are you, brother? It's great to hear your voice.
Hey, I have something I want to show you. I think you're really gonna like it.
Oh, yeah?
I got some soil coming at you.
Oh, dude, that sounds amazing.
I'm gonna text it over to you so you can check it out.
Definitely, absolutely. Send it to me. I'd love to see it, man. I'm always down to look at a beautiful piece of soil.
Yeah, it's soil.
All right. Yeah, buddy. Yes. That is a beautiful piece of soil. I gotta call him back.
While we're waiting for Mark to call me back, I just want to run through a couple of different things to kind of give you guys an idea of the way that this is going to look. So I have samples from a couple of different areas in the lawn at a couple of different depths, and also from the native area up above, plus the soil test that I did a few years ago. And I want to walk through the different sampling of each of those so you have an idea of what I did. What I decided to do this year was to sample at different depths. Now, different depths are going to give you big time different readings, and there is a very good reason for that. Now, a few years ago, the soil sample that I'm going to show you first, this was back in 2018. I had really great readings all across the board, super healthy, good balance, yada, yada, yada. Well, one of the things that I will say that I kind of did wrong is I didn't sample deep enough on that particular test. So the way I pulled that soil sample was I used about a 4-inch core, and I stuck it down through the grass, and then I cleaned all the soil off of the roots, and I sent that in. That's fine, that's all well and good. So where the mistake was made on that is that a lot of your nutrients stay in those top 2 to 3 inches. That's where the bulk of your roots are. That's where most of the breakdown is happening. That's where a significant amount of the biological activity is happening. That's just kind of the zone where, I guess if you want to call it the hot zone for nutrients, you're going to find the highest amount of phosphorus in there, the highest amount of K in there. Everything is going to be right there in that top 1 to 3 inches. Continuing on the streak of not being perfect, I didn't sample at that depth again. I actually went down below. Now, if you remember correctly, I cut out the grass. I lifted up a block that was about 3, maybe 4 inches deep, and then I took soil from down below that. So I started at around the 4-inch level and went down and threw that into the sample for the lawn side. Now, a second lawn area that I did, I pulled from a 1-foot depth where I had the n-ext dig that hole. I pulled that from down underneath. So there is a difference between the soil in those zones, and it is a marked difference, and you can really see it. So really, I should have sent off one more sample in the higher zone to give you guys a good comparison. I can't be perfect. Out of the native area, I did a couple of different things. I took some soil out of an area that we did not disturb under this construction side. So there was a tripod sitting up there that had the laser on it that was showing all of the heights and grades that we needed to hit, and that area never got tracked over, it never got scraped away, it didn't have anything taken away from it. So I pulled soil from that particular section. And then I also pulled some from down a little bit lower where I could get in a little bit deeper off the side, kind of where the the back excavation area was, so I could pull from that zone as well. What grew back there, what's native to this area, is a ton of sagebrush. There was cactus growing back there, loads and loads of different grasses, just little, natural desert, high desert landscape plants. So the one thing I was really surprised about is the area where the tripod was and where I pulled some of that soil out. That was actually pretty coarse soil compared to a lot of the other places. When I went through and built the lawn, I ran a skid steer straight up and I just sort of scalped as much of the topsoil as I could, and I brought it down, and that's what I used to sort of bed down underneath my turf. And I figured that was going to be the best thing for it anyway, just because I might as well use what was here, and eventually that whole hillside was going to be changed as it is now. So that was pulled down back in 2015, and there were a few years where I was just managing that back lawn with very low rates of everything, just basically establishing that turf and working on just overall soil conditioning more than anything else. Really hardly any nutrition. And when I say any nutrition, 2 years of that, I put zero nitrogen on it and just sort of let it ride through. I ran just minor elements the entire time, and it worked great. Into the third season, I started feeding a little bit more, but I didn't exceed 1 full pound of nitrogen in the course of the season. Now, as we kind of moved into this year, I want to say this year I topped out somewhere around 1.25 pounds, maybe up to 1.5 pounds per 1,000 square feet total, which is similar to what I did last year, right around 1.25 pounds. I'm going to have to go back and pull one more sample and wait for it, just so I can get that top 1 to 3. And I'll put that into a future video because there's another soil test that I'm waiting for that actually is a soil life test that I am doing between the native soil and the lawn soil, just to see what's happened over the course of the last 5 years.
Come on, John, pick up, man. You just called me. He must be busy polishing his Birkenstocks.
So Mark's gonna call me in a second. And if you don't know who he is, Lawn Creeps Limited, he does have a channel on YouTube, and he is just the most aggressively passionate guy about soil that I have ever met. And it's really fun to have him just throw in all of his stuff. I mean, he just, so much info just comes blasting right out at you. So he actually sent me, this is some of his soil from Villa Park, Illinois. I'm gonna have him talk a little bit about that as well when he calls me back. So there he is. So let's go ahead, have a little chat with Mr. Mark Paulson of Lawn Creeps. Marcus, how you doing, buddy?
John, what's going on, brother? How the hell are you, man? Great to hear from you.
I'm great. Good, family's good, everything's awesome.
That sounds fantastic, dude.
So hey, did you get a chance to look at those soil reports?
They're absolutely incredible, man. Gorgeous stuff. Thanks for sending them to me. Gave me some goosebumps out here this morning.
That's pretty cool, right?
Well, you know what, dude? It's a testament to your methods, man. It's a testament to what you preach. Hey, let's take our finger off the high analysis chemicals. Let's kind of watch what we're doing with these kilicides and let nature sort of take its course, if you will, right? I mean, nature kind of had this thing figured out for millennia before we stepped in, you know?
So before I talk about what I did, because I don't know that you really need to sit and listen to that because you've been following along for a long time, and I always love your input, man, when you jump in on the early morning calls and throw in that info. It's fantastic. It's always great.
You know what I love about it, man, is that you've pretty much have built that beautiful topsoil within the last couple of years on that virtual rock garden that you started with, brother. We got to build that microbial community. Hold on, dude. I'm looking at a milkweed here.
Why don't you just talk a little bit about the soil food web? Why don't you just give us a couple of hits on what you see, what maybe out, like all that good stuff.
When we lawn and garden as partners with that soil food web, then we are allowing for those natural processes that have been happening for millennia to take place, right? Maybe the days of better living through chemistry are over. Maybe it's time to sort of take a cue from Mother Nature or partner with Mother Nature. Partner with your soil fauna, partner with that soil food web and allow these processes to happen. Be a steward, guide it along. Then that way you're actually creating a beautiful, healthy soil that can support a very resilient crop of plants, whether it's your turf grass or your perennials or your annuals. It doesn't matter. A tree, a shrub, anything that grows out of the soil has the ability to have that relationship with that microbiology. But once we start interrupting those natural processes with again high analysis fertilizers and fungicides and pesticides and all the killicides, then we're disrupting that, and we don't have that diversity in our soil that we need as far as that microbial community goes, and then we're not able to truly sequester carbon.
Okay, so another question would be, what is your ideal lawn care program? What does that look like to you?
If we skew that soil food web by using synthetic, toxic chemicals, this might sound kind of new age or out of left field here, but it's true. It can be done. My lawn is an example of that, and yours is too. And you're showing all of these people the way, brother. They all need to follow you, man. You're the Pied Piper.
That's pretty much it. I just really needed somebody to just sort of chat around with and share with, and I couldn't think of any better person to do it than with you.
Brother, if you're ever out here, man, I'll take you to some of the most amazing prairies and show you some of the most amazing soils that have been developed under tall grass, man, and all of our native forbs and shit. But if you do, dude, you got to leave the flip-flops at home, all right? I refuse to walk through any of these Illinois prairies with the flip-flop wearing hippie.
I appreciate it.
I'm just kidding, dude. All right, buddy. Have a great day, man. Thanks again.
See ya.
All right.
Dude is a character. All right, so first I want to go back to the 2018 stuff and just kind of read off a few of the highlights of this particular test. Now, I did this soil report in October of 2018. So again, this has been a few years under care. And again, this was in the top like 3 to 4 inches is about where it came out. So here's some of the key points on this one. So pH at the time was 7.7, which I actually mentioned in a video I thought was a little bit high, but I was just going to let it kind of do what it was going to do over time and see what happened. So we had that. Now we had around 5% organic matter, 5.1 on this particular test. Again, top 3 to 4 inches. Phosphorus level was nice and high, 78 parts per million. That was great. Potassium level was extreme at 543 parts per million. Now, cations on this one, we were dealing with 24.8, so I was moving into that more clay type or smaller particle soil if you want to look at it. So everything was really just sort of cranking along at that point. And again, I'm going to kick myself, and I'll put it in a future video, but I didn't sample deep enough on this particular one. So this next area, this was done at the 12-inch depth, okay? So this is the 12-inch depth, and I want to give you sort of a difference on what was happening here. pH, 7.7. Still. Organic matter, 4.3 at 12 inches. So it's pretty good. Fairly decent on the nitrate depth. Here's one of the big changes is phosphorus level. Phosphorus level was significantly lower down in that zone at 30 parts per million, which is still fine, but it was getting down there, but this is 12 inches, so we're kind of getting down to the bottom. Also potassium, considerably lower, but still not to where anything needs to be added, 329 parts per million. So all of those, some cations on that, 26.3. So still in a good zone, nothing really wrong with anything in there. So that was on the lawn area. Now, if we move along and go to this level, so this would be the next level down, which would be between 4 and, let's call it 4 and 8 inches in total depth here. Soil pH of a 7. And this is why, 6.9 actually, this is why I wish I would have done the higher sampling as well. But a 6.9 on the pH, so that's one thing. Organic matter, 5%, so we're still doing really good in there. The potassium level, phosphorus level first, right around 46.7 parts per million down there at that like 4 to 8 inch zone. The potassium level, 400 parts per million, so still very high. And again, everything else balancing out the way that it should be. Now, interestingly enough, the recommendations that Ray Ward sent, based on what he was seeing here, is that my lawn should be on a diet of about 100 pounds, 105 pounds of nitrogen per acre annually, which if you do the math on that is like 2.1 pounds per 1,000 square feet total. Or if I did 4 applications, right around a half a pound per 1,000. So there's that. Then let's take a look at the native zone so we can sort of get an idea on that. So in the native zones, up on the hill, this is the one that I did in the more coarse area under the tripod. Phosphorus levels in that zone, 31 parts per million. 31 parts per million in that zone for phosphorus. pH in the native zone, 7.2. The potassium in that zone, 500 parts per million. So you can kind of see a correlation. Now, if you look in the video, you can see I wasn't able to get very far down in that. That was only in the top, like, say, 3 inches there, too, before I started to hit rock. So a lot of this is sort of packed right into that zone. So we got around 500 parts per million there. As far as potassium goes, 31 parts per million of phosphorus. So that's very interesting to see. Now, the second native area that I pulled from was a little bit different, but you can kind of see some correlations in there as well. Soil pH of 7.4, organic matter 3.5%, phosphorus 24.1 parts per million, and potassium at 466 ppm. So there is a naturally high and just a difference between two sections, one just over to the right side of the hill, one towards the middle of the hill, where we have some pretty significant changes in the, just for one, in the potassium level. I mean, we're talking about almost like 100 pounds difference just between those two sections. And again, this can do with depth. This can be sort of the coarse area. But this side had a higher CEC. It was 26.4, where the other one was a bit more coarse, and it didn't really share the same soil structure. So what does it all mean? And does it really matter? The way I've been taking care of my lawn has been very much a soil-first approach. I have done, obviously, lots of humic-containing substances. I've done very low amounts of nitrogen, very low amounts of phosphorus, very low amounts of potassium, and just sort of used up and nurtured the soil the way that I saw fit. And the reductions aren't going to be easily cataloged because I didn't scale it enough through the courses of the season to say, here's the major shift from here to here. The biggest changes that happened on the lawn, period, are the major increase in organic matter from the native soil to what I have been cultivating myself. That's a big difference. Also, the way the pH had moved and trended downward over time, that's also very huge, as it's sort of started to come into more of a neutral pH zone. Awesome. The big thing about doing a soil test like this is really just seeing what you need to be applying in the coming year. What are you going to have to put back into the bank, and are you truly benefiting your soil structure and your organic matter and allowing your roots to run deeper? What are you really doing in your program to make your soil work with and for you? I think one of the coolest things about my job is actually being able to track these things over time. Now, this is just on my lawn, but even going back 15 years when we were doing tests in agriculture, we did the same thing. We tested preseason, postseason, and we would do it year over year on these trial plots just so we knew what we were looking at and seeing what the trend line was on available nutrients. So for those of you who really love the lawn, love the soil, this can be a fun process for you, but you really need to pick how you want to do it. So a full lab analysis like this is going to give you a kind of a huge view, something you can really plan for. If you want to go and do something that's like a resin test on a lot of these commercially available soil tests, it'll give you a great snapshot of what you need to be doing over the course of the next, say, 3 to 6 weeks, but not necessarily the ability to make a season plan. So if you wanted to stay more on top of your game, you could do one of those soil tests every 6 weeks right before you fertilized if you wanted to, or you could take a larger view and plan a little bit out into the future. The beauty of this is it gives you data points and it shows you what you're going to need to be doing and where your money's going to go when you're making your plan for the next year. So that's it. I appreciate you all following along with my lawn as we've done this. Now that it's completely destroyed, I'm going to bury all of that under feet of rock and fill, and I am going to get to start all over next spring. So, all of these data points don't freaking matter. Ah, well. I'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya. That's some nice looking soil.